You know that seeking validation is exhausting. Proving yourself empty consumes your essential energy. If there were respect for who you are, there would be no need for justifications. If there were clarity in relationships, you wouldn't feel pressured to explain yourself. This is not a comfortable choice, it is a reality. Look at the behaviors around you. The one who promises, disappears, returns, justifies, doesn't deliver. And you wait, argue, accommodate, remain. Observe the cycle. There's no mystery in this. It's a pattern that works for one side and destroys the other. You call it commitment because calling it sacrifice demands reflection. You call it connection because calling it dependence demands rupture. Emotional wear persists because you feed it. Not because you're strong, but because you're afraid to cut. Those who control don't need to justify. Those who accept explain too much. Today, you spend time trying to decipher actions that don't need to be deciphered, just recognized as they are. When someone values, they offer. When someone respects, they act. When someone cares, they leave no room for doubt. The rest is just noise. If you need to fight not to lose yourself, you are already lost. If you need to compete with indifference, you've already been sidelined. If you need to beg for attention, this is not a relationship. It is wear. You are not trapped. You are stagnant. And this stagnation is a choice. The harsh truth is this: nothing changes as long as you remain available for what does not nourish you. You don't need more promises. You don't need more understanding. You don't need another chance. You need to decide if you will keep accepting this cost. There is no comfortable ending here. Preservation comes when you decide to stop justifying the unjustifiable. And that moment will not appear on its own. Reality has already been presented. Adaptation becomes a reflection of conformity. You adjust to what is imposed on you, and life becomes a series of concessions. When someone does little, you offer more. The scenario repeats in an agonizing dance where your self-confidence fades and the other person advances. Each time you accept less than you deserve, a piece of yourself shatters. And what happens when those pieces can no longer be glued back together? Frustration accumulates. Dissatisfaction becomes habitual. You learn to live with the pain, but pain is not a natural state. It is a signal, a message that something needs to change. You believe in empty promises, in words that never materialize. And in the process, you become an echo, repeating hopes that have already been disproven. The emotional wear isn't visible, but it is profound. It corrodes your aspirations, your desires. What was once love transforms into an unrealistic expectation, something that must be earned, not offered. When you stop striving for something that does not nourish you, reality becomes clearer. You realize that relationships are like a mirror. They reflect what you allow. If you surrender to indifference, that is what you will receive in return. It is a vicious cycle, a game where the rules only serve those willing to manipulate. Remember, those who control do not engage in debates. They impose, they do not clarify. They don't need to justify their absence. The absence is the message. You try to understand why there is a lack of commitment, but the issue isn't in the logic. It is in the action. Words are fleeting, but actions speak loudly. The silence of those who do not care is deafening, and you have the option to stop chasing after them. You can choose not to comply. When you recognize that the need for validation is just a trap, a creation of your own, liberation begins to appear. There is no room for fear when it comes to your own essence. You simply are. You do not need to be the first to send messages or the last to forgive. This incessant urge to prove oneself worthy is exhausting, and at the end of the day, those who truly care do not place that responsibility on you. When someone wants to be present, their presence is felt effortlessly. Now look around. Each relationship has its weight, its load. You carry things that don't belong to you, expectations, fears, insecurities, and they become a heavy burden, increasingly difficult to bear. What do? You get used to the struggle. But the struggle doesn't have to be your habitual state. Commitment is not synonymous with sacrifice, and the idea that love is suffering is distorted. Love should be light, enriching. However, you tend to accept the opposite. And you remain in this cycle, repeating mistakes, allowing the wound to deepen. When you stop waiting for answers, that's when freedom arises. It's the choice not to be part of someone else's storyline. You spend energy trying to understand the ineffable. But if you look deep in your heart, you know you don't need this. You don't need validation. The recognition you seek is not outside. It's within. You are enough. But for this, you must recognize the value you possess. The cruel but necessary truth is that no one can give you what you don't give yourself. When you decide to break the cycle of dependency, clarity appears. The barriers you created to protect yourself become prisons. And now you must decide whether you want to remain imprisoned or if you're going to open the doors. What you fear is the unknown, but the unknown can also be a space of rediscovery. You may come to find the strength you thought was lost. You may discover that living without the shackles of validation is more delightful than any illusion that was sold to you. Today, declare your independence. Give yourself the right to choose with whom you want to share your energy. By doing so, you not only free yourself, you redefine what it means to be truly connected. And this connection, when true, does not require effort. It flows naturally, without pressure or doubt. The decision is yours. Accept the cost or ask yourself if you are still willing to pay it. This is not just a choice, it is a turning point. And this point will not manifest by chance. Change requires a rupture. Whatever it may be, know that it is possible. Reality has already been presented. Only the recognition of the price you pay can awaken an internal force. You cling to what does not serve you, while what truly matters slips through your hands. Attachment is like an invisible chain, a weight you carry without questioning. Each moment of hesitation is a cruel reminder of the insecurity embedded in your mind. Meanwhile, the other delves deeper into indifference. To them, you are an option. To you, they are the only choice, and that is disastrous. The disproportion fuels the cycle, and your value dissipates with each empty interaction. You need to understand that this asymmetric relationship only works because you allow it. Every sign of disinterest is a clear message, but you transform uncertainty into hope. The result? Deafening silence. Instead of seeing absence as a lack, you see yourself as insufficient. This distorted perception creates a prison where the walls are made of unmet expectations. You seek validation that only exists in words that are never spoken. This is not love. It is loneliness disguised as companionship. Time passes, and you remain in the same dance without music. Each time you feel belittled, a part of you shatters. And yet, the need for understanding continues to dominate. You wait for a gesture, an act, something that reinforces that your presence is desired. But the signs are clear. Those who care take action. The rest is just an echo of what could be but is not. You allow yourself to be treated as a byproduct of others' needs while ignoring your own. Each day, you convince yourself that love must be difficult, and so you remain trapped in this exhausting plot. Broken promises become routine, and you adapt to mediocrity, thinking that this is the best you can get. The emptiness becomes a constant companion. You feel lost amid superficial conversations where every word is a failed attempt to fill a void. However, what you really need is already within you. The strength to get up, to break from accepting the unacceptable, is yours. When you realize this, the transformation begins. It's time to look in the mirror and recognize yourself. You are not a burden or a weight. You are an entity of your own, worthy of respect and genuine love. Your emotions should not be a battlefield. They are vital signs, indicators that changes are needed, and this in itself is liberating. When you decide to stop seeking approval, you make space for what truly matters. You can choose what you wish to carry and what should be left behind. It's not just about detaching from others, but about letting go of the expectations and insecurities that dwell within you. True connection doesn't come from dependency, but from reciprocal and true understanding. And when you finally dedicate yourself to this self-recognition, something incredible happens. The pressure that once shaped your actions starts to dissolve. Relationships become more authentic, and you find yourself surrounded by people who genuinely respect and value your essence. This is not a magical result. It is the natural consequence of freeing yourself from the emotional bonds you created yourself. The discomfort you felt is not the end, but a sign that something was wrong in the way you allowed yourself to be treated. Change is not simple, but it is necessary. Therefore, stop waiting for grand gestures. True transformation begins with small decisions. Say no to what doesn't serve you. Accept that your need for validation does not define who you are. When you put yourself first, the world around you starts to change. Each step you take toward freedom, each time you affirm your worth, reveals new possibilities. The unknown ceases to be a torment and becomes a fertile field for self-discovery. In the end, you realize that security was never in others' hands, but in yours. Yes, the path may be lonely, but the loneliness you feel now is very different from the one you feel when you truly love yourself. You can find peace in independence, and that peace is not a rare commodity. It is accessible to all who dare to step out of the vicious cycle of validation. Now stop and look again. Ask yourself, what do I really want? If the answer does not bring you serenity, it is time to act. Your life does not need to be a collection of moments where you feel less than you really are. You have the ability to create a narrative where you are the protagonist. And this role is non-transferable. The reality has already been presented. The power is in your hands. You need to understand that every decision, no matter how small it seems, shapes your future. Small concessions accumulate like an unavoidable storm. One day you wake up and realize that the life you live is just a distorted reflection of who you really are. How many times have you ignored your own desires to meet others' expectations? Each yes that came out of your mouth while your heart screamed no is a grain of sand in the construction of your emotional weariness. And yet you continue to wear this mask of conformity, thinking that this is what it means to be kind or loving. The hard truth is, you are not being kind to yourself. What seems like an altruistic attitude turns into self-sabotage, and this dynamic repeats itself incessantly. You serve everyone, and at the end of the day you ask yourself, and me? Your image disappears among the faces you feed. When someone apologizes to you, you accept, even though you know the words are not followed by genuine changes. It is easier and less painful to continue in this cycle than to face the challenge of rejection. You justify the unjustifiable, accept the unacceptable, and thus build a chain that only serves to imprison you. With each unfulfilled apology, you are forced to reset your expectations. What should be an open dialogue becomes a silent monologue, where your voice does not echo. Hope disguises itself as patience, but what you are really doing is burying your needs. Anyone who looks closely can see that you are fading, but you still pretend to be fine. You live with a smile etched on your face while internally questioning every interaction. Hope turns into a belief that one day the situation will change. You hope they see how much you have sacrificed, but expecting appreciation from others is a trap. When you place your worth in the hands of those who do not appreciate it, frustration becomes your ally. You are in a minefield. Every step is a possibility of pain, but you insist on walking barefoot, ignoring the clear signs. Loneliness distances itself from physical presence. It is common to be surrounded by people and still feel completely isolated. This paradox is the essence of what you call connection. When you stop striving for external validation, what remains is an empty space that cries out for fulfillment, and the answer lies within you. However, this act of self-assertion is often misunderstood as selfishness. What you need to understand is that your need for approval is not a weakness, but an indication that you need to reclaim your worth. This is not about being inflexible. It's about setting boundaries that protect your essence. You must begin to see each relationship as a genuine reflection of who you are. What do you allow others to express about you? That is the real question. Every time you subject yourself to mediocrity, you diminish your own brilliance. The echoes of indifference do not only affect your relationships, they reverberate in your self-image. How you see yourself is directly linked to what you accept. Allowing others to define your worth is a surrender. Don't let someone's opinion of you be the only narrative you possess. Your feelings should not live in the shadows. They are your north, your compass, and when you start giving yourself the freedom to feel, what once felt suffocating transforms into a breath of fresh air. From that moment, you begin to rewrite the story of your life. Every rejection of what does not serve your essence is a step towards freedom. Look around you again. Every interaction you've had, every word spoken and not reciprocated, every ignored gesture, all of this builds the foundation of the decisions you will make moving forward. You have the power to reverse this cycle. From the moment you decide to step away from what does not nurture you, new opportunities arise. When you finally accept yourself, the world around you transforms. The scarcity you experienced gives way to abundance. You realize that you no longer need to seek affirmation here and there, as you already possess the internal recognition you've always sought in vain. Fulfillment does not come through the attention of others, but through your own understanding of what it means to be complete. The weight you carry by feeling inferior dissolves. The silence that once brought pain is now a space for reflection. You realize that the choice to free yourself is yours, and in doing so, dignity and respect fill those spaces that were once empty. Each step taken toward your authenticity is an act of self-love. You redefine what it means to be in a relationship, not only with others but with yourself. The reality is clear. When you take responsibility for your happiness, the pieces of the puzzle fit together. This is the transformation everyone is waiting for. The understanding that true love does not require sacrifices, but mutual giving. You not only free yourself from the bonds of validation, but also create a space for relationships that enrich your life. And this journey does not end here. It is a continuous process of discovery and rediscovery. You now walk with confidence, knowing that all the weight you carried can be left behind. The strength that was lost returns in a renewed way. Your autonomy shines. Change begins with acceptance, accepting that you deserve more than you have by allowing yourself to explore the unknown. Each new space becomes a new beginning. And finally, you remember who you truly are. The power is in your hands.